Sophia Matthew is a woman of breathtaking beauty. At 25, she looked like a queen. Flawless skin, a perfect hourglass figure, and a graceful charm that made heads turn wherever she went. She carried herself like royalty, always reminding herself of one thing: I must remain forever young. She had built a life around beauty. Every morning, she followed a strict skincare routine, carefully selecting the finest beauty products. She worked out righteously, ensuring her waist stayed trim and her body remained perfect. She believed that youth was power, and as long as she remained beautiful, the world would always be at her feet. Her husband, Daniel, was just as handsome, tall, well built, and successful. He was the kind of man that other women dreamed of, and their marriage was the envy of many. People often whispered about how lucky Sophia was to have Daniel, but in her mind, she believed Daniel was the lucky one. However, there was one problem. Daniel wanted children, and Sophia did not. Every time the topic of children came up, Sophia quickly shut it down. A baby will ruin my body, Daniel, she would say. Pregnancy comes with stretch marks, weight gain, and stress. I can't afford that. At first, Daniel laughed it off, thinking she was joking. But as the years passed and she remained firm in her decision, frustration began to grow between them. One evening during dinner, he finally voiced his concern. Sophia, I love you, but this marriage feels empty without children. I want to be a father. Sophia rolled her eyes, stabbing a fork onto her salad. Daniel, we've talked about this. I'm not ready for that kind of sacrifice. But marriage is about sacrifices, Sophia, he said, his voice filled with disappointment. You can't expect to hold on to your youth forever. Sophia frowned, tightening her head. Watch me, Daniel sighed, rubbing his face. He loved his wife deeply, but he could not ignore the void growing inside him. He wanted a family, but did Sophia love him enough to give him one? Sophia visited her mother, Mrs. Vera, the following weekend. Her mother, a wise and gentle woman, had always been a source of advice. As they sipped tea in the living room, Mrs. Vera noticed the tension in Sophia's eyes. What is it, my dear? She asked, setting her cup down. Sophia sighed. It's Daniel. He keeps bringing up the issue of children, and I am tired of it. Mrs. Vera frowned. And why are you so against having a child? Sophia leaned back, crossing her arms. Because I have seen what pregnancy does to women. It changes their bodies, make them look older. I refuse to lose my beauty. Mrs. Vera shook her head, disappointment clear in her eyes. Sophia, beauty fades no matter how much you try to hold on to it. But family, it lasts forever. Sophia scoffed. I don't need children to feel complete. I have Danny and I have myself. Her mother sighed deeply. Sophia, let me warn you. Don't play with your marriage. A man who desires a child will not remain patient forever. But Sophia waved her hand dismissively. Daniel loves me too much to leave me, Mama. Stop worrying. Mrs. Vera took her daughter's hand. Love is not just about admiration, Sophia. It's about building a life together. Don't let your pride cost you your happiness. Sophia smiled, kissing her mother's hand. Mama, trust me, I know what I am doing. But Mrs. Vera could see it in her daughter's eyes. Sophia was walking on dangerous ground. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel's frustration only grew stronger. One evening, as they sat at dinner, he brought up the topic again. Sophia, this marriage is incomplete without a child. I need to know, will you ever change your mind? Sophia sighed in irritation. Daniel, I've already told you my answer. Daniel clenched his jaw. Then what do you expect me to do? Sit here and accept it? Sophia suddenly had an idea. She leaned forward and smiled. I have a solution. Daniel narrowed his eyes. What kind of solution? She smiled. If you want a child so badly, we can find someone else to carry it for us, like a surrogate. Daniel's face darkened. You want another woman to have my child? Sophia nodded. Yes, she will give birth and we will raise the child as our own. That way, you get what you want and I don't have to change my body. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. Sophia, a child isn't a business transaction. It's supposed to be created from love. Sophia smirked. Love is what we have, Daniel. This is just a practical solution. Daniel stood up, pushing his chair back. I need to think. Sophia watched as he walked away. She knew he would resist at first, but in the end, she was confident he would agree. Days later, Daniel finally gave in. Sophia wasted no time. She found a young woman named Anna, beautiful, soft-spoken, and desperate for money. She sat Anna down and explained everything. You will have my husband's child, and once the baby is born, I will pay you generously. Hannah hesitated. I don't know if I can do this. Sophia smiled, placing a bundle of cash on the table. Think about your future. This money can change your life. Anna looked nervous. She needed the money, and so she agreed. Daniel, however, remained cold and distant. He went along with it, but something in his heart had already changed. Sophia did not see it. She thought she was still in control. After Sophia finalized the arrangement with Anna, things began to change in the Matthews household. Anna moved into one of the guest rooms in their mansion. At first, she was nervous, feeling like an outsider in someone else's marriage. But Sophia was clear about the rules. Anna was there for one purpose only, to give Daniel a child. Daniel, however, felt a deep discomfort. He had never imagined being in such a situation, though he had agreed to it. But the thought of sleeping with another woman while his wife watched from a distance felt unnatural. The first night Anna moved in, Sophia noticed Daniel's silence. He sat on their bed, staring at the floor, his hands clasped together. What's wrong? She asked, running her hand through his hair. Daniel exhaled deeply. This feels wrong, Sophia. I never thought I would be in a situation where I have to sleep with another woman just to have a child. Sophia rolled her eyes. Oh, please, Daniel. It's just a means to an end. You are acting like you are committing a crime. Daniel looked at her, his eyes filled with disbelief. Because it feels like one. I married you, Sophia. I wanted a family with you, not with someone else. Sophia sighed in frustration. And I told you, I can't have a child myself. This is the best way. Daniel shook his head and rubbed his face. Do you even love me, Sophia? Or do you just love yourself? Sophia's face hardened. I love you, Daniel. That's why I'm giving you a child in the best way possible. I don't see the problem here. But deep down, Daniel knew something was breaking inside him. That night, as Sophia slept peacefully beside him, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His heart was heavy. Anna was living under the same roof as them, and whether he liked it or not, everything was about to change. A week after Anna moved in, Sophia sat with Danny and spoke to him like it was a business deal. "It is time," she said casually, sipping her wine. Daniel frowned. "Time for what?" She smiled. "For you to do what we agreed on." Daniel's stomach twisted. He had tried to avoid thinking about this moment, but Sophia was making it sound so simple. "You make it sound so simple," he muttered. "Because it is, Daniel," she said. "Just do it and get over with it." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Sophia, she's a person, not a machine." Sophia waved her hand dismissively. "It's just one night, Daniel. After that, she will be pregnant and we can move on with our lives." Daniel felt disgusted, but he knew there was no way out. He had already agreed to this arrangement. That night, he walked down the hallway, feeling like he was walking towards something he would regret forever. He knocked on Hannah's door, and when she opened it, she looked nervous. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to," she whispered. Daniel exhaled. "But I already agreed to it." Anna nodded and stepped aside to let him in. That night was awkward, painful, and empty. There was no passion, no love, just an obligation. And the worst part, Daniel felt like he had betrayed himself. When it was over, he left without a word, and as Anna lay in bed, staring at the wall, she could not help but wonder, was she making the biggest mistake of her life? Weeks passed, and Anna confirmed what they had all been waiting for. She was pregnant. Sophia was overjoyed. She threw a small celebration, inviting a few friends over, showing off a brilliant plan that had worked. But Daniel was not celebrating. Something inside him had changed. He found himself caring for Anna in ways he had not expected. He accompanied her to doctor's appointments, made sure she ate properly, and checked on her constantly. Sophia noticed but ignored it. In her mind, Daniel was just being responsible, but Mrs. Vera saw the danger. One day, she pulled Sophia aside. "You are playing a dangerous game, Sophia," she warned. Sophia laughed. "Oh, Mama, stop worrying. Everything is going according to plan." Mrs. Vera shook her head. "You think you are winning, but you are losing your husband right in front of your eyes." Sophia's smile faded for a second, but she quickly brushed it off. "Daniel loves me too much. Anna is just a tool to get what we want." But Sophia was wrong. Daniel was not looking at Anna as just a tool anymore, and soon everything will fall apart. The day Anna went into labor, the house was filled with tension and urgency. It was midnight when she screamed in pain. Sophia was in her room scrolling through social media when she heard Daniel's panicked voice. "She's in labor," he shouted. "We need to get her to the hospital now." Sophia stayed in bed, pretending to be asleep, but her heart was racing. Daniel rushed Anna to the hospital, leaving Sophia behind. Hours later, he sent a message. "The baby is here. He is perfect." Something inside Sophia snapped. For the first time in her life, she felt invisible. When Daniel returned home, he carried his newborn son in his arms, his face glowing with happiness. Anna followed behind, weak but smiling. Sophia stood by the staircase watching as he kissed the baby's tiny forehead. Daniel walked up to her and said, "Sophia, meet my son, Ethan." He said proudly, "Isn't he handsome?" Sophia forced a smile, but her hands clenched into fists. For the first time she saw it, the love in Daniel's eyes was no longer for her. It was for the child she refused to give him. Days turned into weeks, and Sophia found herself fading into the background. Daniel was always with Anna and the baby. He barely spoke to Sophia, and when he did, it was only about things that did not matter. One evening, he walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. His face was calm but serious. "We need to talk," he said. Sophia felt a chill go down her spine. "Talk about what?" He took a deep breath. "This marriage." Sophia laughed nervously. "Daniel, please, don't start this again." "I can't pretend anymore, Sophia," he said. "I love my son and I love Anna. She gave me what you refused to give me. She was willing to sacrifice her body for me, for our family, and you." He paused, shaking his head. "You never wanted to be part of this family." Sophia's breath hissed. "Daniel, you don't mean that." But his face was firm. "I want a divorce." Tears filled Sophia's eyes. "You can't do this to me," she screamed. "I was only trying to protect myself. I thought you would understand." Daniel sighed. "I understood, Sophia, but love is about sacrifice, and you were never willing to sacrifice anything for me." That night, he packed his things and left their bedroom. And just like that, the perfect life she built came crashing down. Sophia sat in her empty house, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She was still beautiful, her skin was flawless, her body still perfect, but what was the point? No one was looking anymore. No one cared. She thought about all the times she had rejected Daniel's plea for a child. She thought about how her mother had warned her. She thought about how she had laughed at her mother's face, confident that Daniel would never leave her. Now she was alone. The worst part was Daniel did not hate her. He didn't fight or argue. He simply walked away as if she no longer mattered. She picked up her phone, scrolling through old pictures of them together, smiling at a fancy dinner, holding hands, looking like the perfect couple. With shaking fingers, she dialed Daniel's number once again. It rang, and then a woman answered. It was Hannah. "Hello." Sophia's heart broke into a million pieces. She quickly hung up the phone and buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. She had lost, and there was no going back. Months passed and life moved on. Daniel and Hannah got married in a simple but beautiful ceremony. Sophia wasn't invited. She only heard about it through whispers and social media posts. Ethan, the child she had once dismissed, was growing up with a father who adored him. Hannah, the woman she once saw as nothing but a tool, had now taken her place. And Sophia, she was still beautiful. Men still admired her. But beauty felt meaningless to her. One evening, she stood by her window watching the sunset. She whispered to herself, "I wanted to be forever young, but now I am forever alone." And for the first time in her life, she understood vanity had cost her everything. The end. Thank you guys for listening to this beautiful story. If you are my returning subscriber, you are welcome. I love you. You guys are the real MVPs. And if you are here to subscribe to join this amazing family, please do so. And don't forget to like this video, share with your friends and family, and drop a beautiful comment down below. See you in my next video.